the response to this particular shooting has been a little bit Kafkaesque in a way. For a start, I'm reading that a lot of teachers and other civil servants are losing their jobs for tweeting the wrong response to his death.
Yes. Well, that's certainly the threat that has been articulated over the last few hours, in fact, by Stephen Miller, the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, in many ways the chief ideologue within Donald Trump's White House operation. I mean, we saw actions being taken very quickly in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination by the government to say that they were going to be taking names of all of those people, and there have been many of them who have taken to social media, in some cases to celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination, in other cases simply to voice the fact that many of his views were divisive and that they didn't admire him, and in some cases to say that they weren't that unhappy to see him removed from the political debate. Now, we've seen the Deputy Secretary of State warning, not only warning, but actually asking the American public to provide the names of any foreigners here in the United States who have engaged in that kind of social media activity. And on Elon Musk's platform, you can actually see a whole array of Americans responding to that request. Lots of foreign names and foreign handles on X being provided to the State Department. I think that there is the possibility that we will see some people pretty rapidly deported. We've also seen the Pentagon move to make it clear that any active duty member of the military, anyone on what we must now call the Department of War's payroll, who has engaged in any kind of social media activity that is anything less than fully respectful of Charlie Kirk, will soon find themselves out of a job. We've seen attacks being made on institutions of higher education and the educational system more broadly, again coming from within the White House. Accusing educators in the United States of radicalizing children, even though there is absolutely no evidence yet to support the view that the assassin, the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk, was radicalized. And if he was radicalized during his educational career, we still don't even know what side of the political aisle he comes from. So, we're in a situation here, Natasha, where the White House had a choice. They could, in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination, do what some Republicans, particularly the governor of Utah, and the Democrats' leadership are doing, and call for national unity and say this is an absolutely shocking, heinous act. There must be no repetition of it. The temperature needs to calm down. There's no excuse for political violence whenever it is meted out on either side of the equation, because as you already eloquently expressed, many Democrats have been on the receiving end of political violence in addition to Republicans. Or they could go full throttle and insist that the radical left, by which they really mean the Democrats, are behind all of this and begin a witch hunt to root people out. And they've chosen that second course. And you get the impression that there was almost disappointment in some quarters because the suspect currently being held for the murder of Charlie Kirk is a cisgender, heterosexual white man from a Republican family. I believe that his father was a police officer turned minister, and appears, despite initial reporting about what was written on the bullets, appears to be a kind of alt-right gamer. Without wanting to speculate too much, there isn't much there that MAGA can cling on to in terms of demonising a particular group. So it seems that they're just going after the left. I mean, is this McCarthyism now? Is this what we're facing? Well, I mean, there's a lot to say there, because we did see, for example, South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace, even before Charlie Kirk's death had been confirmed, while he was still in hospital undergoing some form of attempt to save his life, she came out on the steps of the Capitol and said, this crime was committed. It looks like this crime was committed by, as she put it, a tranny. She is an avowed opponent of anything pertaining to trans rights on Capitol Hill, and without any evidence whatsoever, she was pointing that finger of blame. Donald Trump was immediately blaming the radical left for all of this. The speculation that has been taking place, particularly on Elon Musk's X, but also on other social media platforms, and of course on 4chan, has been completely out of control. People being named as having had involvement in the assassination of Charlie Kirk with no evidence whatsoever to support those claims. No time being given whatsoever to the investigation to engage in what is hard work, trying to understand this alleged assassin's motivation for the attack. And remember, Charlie Kirk had come himself in for criticism from other figures on the right here in the United States, including the white supremacist Nick Fuentes, who was a man who has dined with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and who recently very publicly criticized Charlie Kirk quite angrily, saying, how can Charlie Kirk profess to be a committed Christian and yet be absolutely supportive of what Israel is doing in Gaza? Now, Nick Fuentes, of course, comes to the entire Gaza conversation from a different perspective. His critics contend that he's a virulent anti-Semite. But there was a definite schism between Charlie Kirk and some other figures on the right. So we don't have any idea what the motivation was for this alleged assassin. And until we get clarity on that, yes, he appears to have come from a Republican household. His father was, I think, a former police officer, but not a minister. He connected with a minister who then helped the family arrange the surrender of the suspect to police. But I've also seen former students who went to school with him saying that certainly when he was a teenager, he was always on the left, the suspect. So this is all very unclear. And until we get clarity, if we ever get clarity on his motive, all of these conversations frothing away, particularly on X, are just so damaging to the social fabric here, given the easy availability of guns, the fact that there is so much anger within Donald Trump's Make America Great Again movement, along with the grief and the mourning over the shocking killing of Charlie Kirk, and fear among the political classes about where all this might lead. Kamala Harris, former vice president, she's about to begin a nationwide book tour. And 10 days ago, Donald Trump stripped her of her Secret Service protection. I mean, she's got to be rethinking security for that book tour under the current febrile atmosphere in which we live here.
Any hope whatsoever that Charlie Kirk's death would have America rethinking its gun control laws, or is that just completely pie in the sky?
Absolutely. None whatsoever. I mean, I can give you a longer answer, but it doesn't change the calculus in any way on Capitol Hill about gun control. And I mean, remember, Charlie Kirk himself argued that gun deaths in the United States were, as he put it, a prudent deal, a reasonable situation to accept as the price for maintaining the Second Amendment to the American Constitution, which is the amendment to the Constitution that tells Americans they have the right to keep and bear arms. So he himself said, whatever the case in terms of gun deaths in the United States, they're a price worth paying. And remember that when he was assassinated, he was being challenged by one of his critics. He was a man who engaged in dialogue in these university campus tours and at all times through his career. He was being challenged over his view that the most effective way to reduce the number of gun deaths in the United States was not by limiting the availability of firearms, but by overturning gender-affirming rights. And the questioner that was questioning him when he was cut down by that bullet was challenging this notion that there was a tie between transgender assailants and the vast majority of mass shootings in the United States.